John Muir Elementary School. We grew up in the Tower District. And at John Muir, one person called another friend an MR, and everybody froze and looked at me. And I said, how come everybody's looking at me? They called her the MR. And they said, don't you know that's your sister? Mentally retarded. And we lived across the street from John Muir, so I just left the school and went home. I didn't want anybody to see me crying. And I said, Mom, they think Kathy's a bad name. And my mom said, Deb, we're just going to love her as she is, and we'll teach other people to love her too. And so she was just so gentle, my mom, with teaching it. Both my parents were performers in the Ice Capades. And so I grew up looking at all these glamour black and white photos and 16mm film and loved that. And they wanted me to get into something. And my dad was an acrobat on ice. And he was actually one of the first to do a backflip on the ice through a hoop and performed it on the Ed Sullivan Show, which is pretty cool. And so I was upside down being thrown and balanced, you know, like circus tricks and things at a young age. And they found a gymnastics program, and I got in and I just took to it like a fish in water and loved it, loved it, loved it. And made the Olympic trials in 1972 and had some national titles up to that point. And I was injured in the Olympic trial qualifications, and it just pulled me right out. And I was 16 at the time. And so that was when I turned my energy back into Kathy again. And we signed up for a dance class here in town. And when I went in, I didn't think of saying, this is Kathy who has Down syndrome, because the other mom's not saying, this is Susie and she's a little precocious and hard to handle. So when I went in, the teacher panicked, and she said, I'm sorry, but this must be the wrong class for you guys. And I said, well, this is kind of an open class. And they said, well, we don't work with those kind of people. I'm so sorry. And I hadn't heard it for years. My dad served on the first ARC board here in town, and my mom coached the very first Special Olympic swim team at Frank H. Ball Playground on west side of Fresno, and we were there in the water helping coach alongside. And that's where the love of working with all abilities. I love to coach, and I was coaching competitive athletes. And then they added gymnastics as a sport, and they tracked me down because they heard, here's this national level gymnast that has a sister with Down syndrome, maybe she can help us add the sport to Special Olympics. And that's one of the big honors I got to be a part of. Special Olympics is great, but it was separate, you know, from other kids and peers their own age. And so in our backyard, you know, like Steve said, well, let's just try it. And it was wonderful. The athletes that have any kind of a need of some kind were copying or emulating, you know, the peers that were in the class. And a great thing just started happening. There wasn't that competitive spirit. It was there because all kids want to get better, but it turned into a family backyard program where everybody's cheering for each other. And we had a little girl that learned a cartwheel with cerebral palsy, and for her to get her legs up in slow motion going all the way over the top, everybody just froze. And we thought, wow. And then I started working with blind and vision impaired and deaf and hard of hearing, and just going to schools and volunteering my services. And I didn't realize how much education I was getting, you know, during that time. Break the Barriers is community built by a wonderful board of directors and volunteers and staff, and I'm sitting here representing everybody and parents. You know, we turn into sponges and soak up the needs and what their wants are, and we do it, and we try to please everybody. You know, people say you can't, but we can try, you know, to please everybody if we can. And I think that the concept is so easy, people just walk right by it. It's just so easy to include. Is people are praying the same prayer that everybody else is around the world. They're praying their child to have an opportunity to use the gifts that they've been given. But a lot of our kids don't have the opportunity. And so provide the opportunity and let them surprise you. Romania was our first trip. And right before we left, 60 Minutes did a segment on the barbaric treatment of kids with special needs in the Romanian orphanages. And we were going to be in Romanian orphanages. And so when we went there, that was the first stop. And we were in one of the orphanages that was actually televised. And when we got there, we weren't allowed to go in because they weren't going to trust anybody. But they had their children that they had with cerebral palsy or Down syndrome or physical needs. No wheelchairs were there at all, no crutches, no walkers. And so they were sitting in the middle of the weeds, because they don't mow their lawns either, like plants getting sun, and we found out that was their time to get sunshine, and we were ready to say, oh, okay, isn't there anything we can do? We got to do something, until we met the woman that's the care provider for them. And I said, we're here to perform for you today. And she said, oh, no, 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 for the other children. And I said, but look, and it was the last country that my sister went to. I said, look at this one, and I saw a Down syndrome face. I said, look, this is my sister, because she knew English. This is my sister Kathy, they're the same. Look at this one, and I saw a face maybe with cerebral palsy. Look at Tara here, look, they're the same, we're here for you. And after the first song, they started carrying all these kids out, and they were maybe 15 feet away from the mainstream of kids. And at the end, we always do a song where everybody's involved and the kids are in it. We do pyramids with them. And I went up to her and she was crying. And I said, could we dance with your children today? And she said, today you can dance with all my children. And then she said, I didn't know. In my wildest dreams, I never knew my children could do this kind of thing. Because there needs to be a voice out there, we go forward. And we go forward as a team. And I couldn't do it without a team. And the team is not just what you see on the floor. There's a team of parents and family and coaches and community support. You know, we couldn't do it without the support of everyone. A message that we always want to leave with people is we all have ability, we all have disability. That's what we have in common, so there shouldn't be a barrier. And a lot of people want to separate the two, but there's a lot that have many gifts of loving unconditionally, or being joyful, or having the confidence to go out on a stage, you know, when it wasn't even planned. And you have other people that have a hard time forgiving and a hard time maybe with anger. And we got to connect each other together so that we can share each other's gifts. And so the bottom line is we're all the same. And we all just want that opportunity to excel.
Thank you, my friend, for the love you share. Thank you, my friend, for showing that you care. This couldn't be what it is today without your faithfulness along the way. Thank you, my friend, for the love you share. Thank you, my friend, for showing that you care. This couldn't be what it is today without your faithfulness along the way. Ribbons of laughter floating up in the breeze, faster and higher with the greatest of ease. These kids are laughing 'cause you let it happen. And so we want to send our thanks to you.
Thank you, break the barrier.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, break the barrier.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend, for the love you share. Thank you, my friend, for showing that you care. This couldn't be what it is today without your faithfulness along the way. Without your faithfulness